If you love juicy and extremely tasty steaks, then you need to watch this video. Because the moment you stop using grill grates, everything just might change. Woo!
Big thanks to Napoleon Grills for sponsoring this episode.
Grilling steaks is one of the most satisfying things you can cook on a barbecue. Building up a beautiful crust, sizzling maillard flavor, extremely juicy and tender beef. I mean, what's not to like about a good steak from the barbecue? But I think the traditional thinking about cooking steaks is all about to change. And it's because of that. This might look like an ordinary gas barbecue, but it really isn't. It is so much more. And this has actually made me think about changing the way I grill my steaks forever. And I'm going to show you exactly why I think that is. And to do this experiment, I selected this, a beautiful flat meat steak. Look at that. That is a biggie. I think it's big enough for the experiment that we're going to do. In the Netherlands, we call this buffet. It's flat meat and it's one of the most exciting steaks you can cook up on a barbecue. First thing that I'm gonna do is put some salt on it. This is a thin piece of meat, so I'm gonna put on a little bit. And the best way to salt the steak is 4 hours before you start cooking. And I've actually found this out doing a number of experiments. Of course, I will link that video down below in the video description. But what it comes down to is that if you season your steak 24 hours before you start cooking it, it becomes a brine steak and the flavors will change the beef flavor. Basically, you're turning your steak into a ham. If you season it up to 4 hours before you start cooking, the salt has enough time to draw into the meat. And if you season it directly before grilling, most of the salt flavor will disappear because of the hardcore action on the barbecue. Therefore, 4 hours before cooking is the perfect moment to season your steak. Now let's start talking about the method that we're going to use. The first one, the traditional one. Now you might recognize this barbecue as a gas grill, but it's no longer that. Because nowadays you have a side burner, you've got stainless steel casted grill grates, cast stainless steel. And you can also put charcoal in these barbecues, which means you have to think of this grill more as a hybrid grill than an actual gas grill. Not to mention all the automation that goes into the modern day grill, where it tells you the amount of gas that you have. But starting with the first method, we're going to grill this steak on the gas grill. Preheat the barbecue, fire it up, then close the lid and wait until it's warm. Now let's slice off a piece of steak for that first part of the experiment. And I want to look for where the thread is running in the steak, and I'm going to cut in that direction. So with the fibers. That's going to be the first steak for our experiment. Now let's take a look at the grill, because it's currently at red, and that means go. But in barbecue, these things are mostly in the opposite. Red means go, green means, well, it means you're not ready for grilling yet. The grill grates are all warmed up, and the last thing that I'm going to do is put a little bit of olive oil on that steak. Of course, I'm going to do that on both sides. It's going to help build up a maillard effect, and it's going to give this steak a beautiful crust. Well, without further ado, I want to make sure I got good contact with the meat and the grill, so we got that beautiful sear mark. I am going to close the lid so we retain that heat and the steak cooks a little faster. And you have to think about all that energy we put in that stainless steel casted grill grate. It's basically bomb holding on to all that energy, and once the cold steak touches the grill grate, it just releases it instantly. So you're gonna get quick sear marks. When the edges start turning gray, it's time to do a flip. Look at the beautiful sear and maillard effect we got from the grill grates. Now that is what you get from having some premium grill grates. I'm gonna take my chef's temp, make sure that I got my core temperature right, and we're at 46. I'm going to take the lowest temperature, which is important. 48, 47, that's about right, because I still need to let this steak rest. The resting period is going to be almost just as long as the cooking period. So in this case, I grilled the steak in about 8 minutes. That means I'm going to now give it 8 minutes to relax. When you start seeing the juices on top, it's time to slice into the steak. And look at that beautiful cuisson. What a beauty. Always cut against the grain as your finished cut, and then start slicing into it. You know, I really like this steak. It looks good and it tastes amazing. However, I believe that we can do better than this traditional method. You see, I'm kind of missing a little bit of crust. We only got the sear marks and we don't have the browning and the flavor in between. So we're going to go to method 2, which has been my absolute favorite so far. Obviously, I cleared my plate and now it's time to get the grill grates out. And that is really the step 2. It's like we gotta turn this barbecue into its ultimate form. Now I'm going to take the heat deflectors and set them aside as well. I just have to get my special tool. Look, this is my special tool. This is a super heavy steel tray. Not just any tray, a charcoal tray. And with that, I'm going to turn this into a full-blown charcoal grill. Of course, you can choose between using briquettes. Now, I love using a little bit of charcoal because it's just giving me that special bit of flavor. Well, that goes in. I'm going to put the grill grates back in their place. I'm going to fire up the 2 burners underneath the charcoal. Of course, the big question is, what is changing here? I'm still using the same grill grates, and is charcoal really going to make the steak so much better? Let's find out. Once the charcoal is fully lit, it's time to put the steak on. How do you know if the charcoal is hot enough? Well, just put your hand above it, and once you can hold it longer than 5 seconds, it's ready. Of course, we're going to take another piece of our beautiful steak, let's carve it out. Again, a little bit of olive oil, and don't put too much on, otherwise you're going to get a fireball. And normally I don't mind, but burned olive oil, that's right, it just doesn't taste that good. All right, there we go. And the first thing to notice is that we're going a lot faster than the first time. Basically, the charcoal is giving off a lot of energy onto that steak. Also, this time I don't need to close the lid because of the amount of energy that we're getting together with that charcoal and the gas. When I'm standing close to the grill, it's even hot to my face. So I want to make sure I check the steak earlier than I normally would, because this is going a lot faster. I got to make sure I have good contact with the grill grates. Let me show you something, because now we're starting to notice a difference. Not only the grill grates are getting beautiful development of maillard, but also in between. So let's do a flip, move it around to the hot position on the grill grates. And as you can see, we're just getting as much energy off the charcoal as we're getting from the grill grates. And that allows us to build up a better looking crust. Now I'm going to use my chef's temp again and check the core temperature of the steak. 32, 43. We're building up a crust really fast, but the inside of the steak is not catching up. So although I like the action, I now need to move to the alternative and put it up here somewhere a little cooler to slowly get the temperature up in the steak. Now I'm going to shut off the gas, close the lid, and do basically like an indirect cook on the steak. We're at the point where we need to take it off. Now you have to keep in mind that it's going a lot slower than the last time where we grilled it up the way to the core temperature. Now I was just cooking it in the corner. Sounds like something out of a rap song, but I was just raising the temperature up enough for the steak to be cooked. And so with that slow cook, you're going to have less overshoot on the rest. And again, I'm going to let it rest for about 8 minutes. Lots of hot coal on the grill, and I need to do the next. I need to get the hot coals out. This is going to be dangerous. Of course, I'm using my trusty X gloves. Let's see if they'll keep me safe this time. That's hot. I'm going to scoop some coals out before I start moving this. And I don't want you to do this at home. Never ever do this at home. It's a bad idea. I'm going to put it in my ash bucket. Do you know why? Ash bucket is something that we never talk about, what we should. Because if you put your ash in a bucket like this and leave it there for a couple of days, then you know your fire is probably going to be out. But if you just toss it out of the barbecue, it could still go for a long time. And I've seen pictures of many sheds being burned down because of leftover charcoal. It's getting hot in here. Boy. Hot, 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 hot. Whew. All right, let's do this. Ooh. Instantly the crust had more resistance on the knife. Again, a beautiful and juicy steak. Looks really, really good. Ooh. Nice and juicy. And the crust is so much better. And now you see what is one of my favorite ways to cook a steak. Cheers, guys. Ta-da! See how that steak again magically disappeared? I don't know how that happens. Magically delicious steaks. However, the first one was a classic version of a steak, cooked on a gas grill like so many dads do. Then we added charcoal to the mix to get a better crust and therefore more flavor. Now the steak was instantly elevated to something very, very delicious. But what if I told you that removing the grill grate altogether, and no, I'm not just throwing the steak into the charcoal, because I got something better, making me put the grill grates aside more and more. And I didn't think I would ever say that, because I'm a strong believer. Cast iron grill grates and charcoal. But this really makes me doubt it. Let's get our steak ready again, and basically we don't have to do much. I'm not gonna cut it up again. It's my final approach, and I could still have a little bit more steak. And the technique is not going to change. I'm still gonna put on a little bit of olive oil. This time I'm allowed to add a little bit more than in the previous situation, and you'll see why. However, the grill is not yet ready. So let's transform it to the ultimate new setup. As you can see, I've removed the grill grate. It's already cooled down a little bit. And now I'm going to take that one magical thing that's going to change everything. This is it. Well, maybe it's better I put, see? This is a stainless steel flat top griddle. And yes, it goes straight into my barbecue. Like that. Couldn't be easier, right? Now all I have to do is just turn on the gas, and I'm firing at all cylinders because I want this thing nice and hot. And what I'm about to show you and how to cook on this thing and the effect that it has on my steak, this is going to be good. I already put the oil on, so all I need to do now is put the steak on the grill. Listen to this. That sizzle, that is just out of this world. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put a little bit more oil on so we can get even more sizzle. What we're looking at here now only took 30 seconds to do. Look at that. We're building up that crust already, starting to look good. Just going to move it around to a hotter section. The sound is not what it's about. It's about building up a crust. But look at the amount of surface that we have building up a crust. And you can argue, hey man, I can do the same thing in my pan. In no pan on any stove would fit this steak. And besides that, every fire alarm in the house would go off. I'm going to do my first flip, and as you can see, the crust is not perfect yet. But we're going to turn around, start cooking on the other side so the steak cooks evenly. I'm also going to close the lid so we can build up much more heat on the surface. And once that sear is starting to build up, it's time to start playing with flavor. A little bit of honey whiskey. Woo! Ha ha ha! Yeah, baby. And that's going to add lots and lots of flavor to our steak. Another thing that I'm going to do is add more flavor by putting on a little bit of butter. It's maybe a little bit more traditional, like you would do it in a pan, but it's going to give the steak a rich and creamy crust. And while we're at it, I might as well put on a few garlic cloves, a little bit of thyme, and some rosemary. Of course, we're making sure again we got the temp right. We're closing in on what we're looking for. Almost there. Time for one last flip. Take a little bit of that heat off. Now we're going to let this steak rest. Of course, I'm resting it on with the herbs on it so it can distribute a little bit more of that flavor. Turn off the crazy barbecue thing here, and now we wait again for at least 8 minutes. We got an overall beautiful crust, a nice real maillard effect on the steak. But what does it look like on the inside? Is it juicy and tender? Well, I'll let you decide. But personally, I wouldn't let that go. So we got the looks, but what does it taste like? Cut it with the grain so far, so now let's cut it against the grain. Let's get that little, definitely a crust. Wow, that is starting to look good. That is one beautiful looking steak. Let's give it a try. Yeah, you might have to throw on a little bit of flammable fluids to get that explosion. But besides the entertainment value, the flavor is really good. The only thing missing here is a little bit of charcoal flavor on the steak. But that doesn't hold me back of making a flat top griddle steak. Would you rather have the classic version, the charcoal and the grill grates? Or would you stop using grill grates to cook a steak altogether? It's a tough one. See you guys next time. Until then, eet smakelijk and keep on grilling.